Okay, so let's start this class. So welcome you all to this PMI-ACP program. My name is Ashutosh Kumar, and I'll be your instructor for this program. A brief background about me. I have around 18 years of experience in the IT industry, and currently I'm performing the role of an Agile coach, wherein my job involves training and consulting teams who are in the transformation journey from a traditional software development methodology to from a traditional methodology to agile methodology. And I'm a coach and a consultant. Training happens to be my passion or a hobby, as you can say, and I have been conducting PMI-ACP program regularly in classroom mode as well as in e-learning or the live virtual classroom, what we are doing right now. Uh, Besides Agile, I'm also an expert in project management and also an CISA certified professional. So I'm sure you will have a nice, exciting time as we move along this journey. As we all know, this course is there to help you prepare for the PMI ACP certification program. And ACP is Agile Certified Practitioner. So it's one of the certificates from Project Management Institute PMI. And PMI is the world's leading not-for-profit organization which is primarily into project management consulting, advising clients, and also coming up with competency assessment programs like PMI-ACP, Project Management Professional, and Program Management Professional. So this course, as I said, is aligned to the PMI program, and what we'll be essentially covering is the syllabus as per the Agile Certified Practitioner program. Now, from an Edureka perspective, we have a comprehensive LMS or a learning management system, and I'll briefly touch upon how does one navigate over a learning management system. So I'm sure each one of you has got a link on how to enroll for this program. So the website where you need to go is www.edureka.co, and you will have to enter your login ID and password as your valid credentials in order to enter into this site. And we have a total of 8 sessions planned over next 4 weeks. So what one needs to do is one needs to go to course content, as you can see here. And once I go to course content, I will see the module for which I am taking for which I have been enrolled. And under module, you will get the class date. So that's where you can join. So here, if you see here on the screen, it shows me my next class. So my next class is going to start tomorrow. And so tomorrow when I come, I need to click on this join class button and I need to join the class in the webinar mode. So that's how I go about entering the class. Once you enter the class, you will observe that you have got a control panel with you, right? And in the control panel, what you need to do is there's a question window, as you can see. So at any point in time, if you have any question to me, what I would request is just uh, type in a question there and just send it to me, and I'll be more than happy to answer any query or question you have about the slide what is being covered or about anything related to the topic which is under discussion. Now it might happen that for some questions I might decide to park the questions because it may not be logical for me to explain at that point of time the response to that question. I might park that question temporarily, or in case there are multiple participants in the session, it might happen that your question, if you have happen to be the first one to type this question, it might scroll over that window and it might temporarily hide, but don't worry on that aspect. I will answer all the questions what are being placed on the question window. Okay, so I hope it's clear till now whatever I have explained. Any questions till now before I move ahead? Okay, So I take it as no questions as of now. Now, once the class, okay, one good thing about this class is that it is getting recorded. And so at any point in time in later, if you want to access the recording, you can always view the recording of a class. So all these 8 classes are being recorded as we take these classes, and the recording is available to participant approximately 8 to 9 hours after the class ends. So once our class ends, it takes usually about 8 to 9 hours for you to get an access to the recording. And as I said, this recording is available for you and you can always refer to the recording. Now, after the class ends, in case you have any queries, what you need to do is you need to click on this support button. So if you see there is a support button here, once you click on it, a window would get popped out, as you can see. And in this, you have to select the course name, which is PMI-ACP certification. You need to select the relevant category. So let me explain what these categories are. If you have any query about any topic covered in the training, please select project or assignment, and you can type in a question related to that. For example, if you want to understand what are different agile methodologies, so this is a content related question, so you will need to type in here, and then the description. So you can say something like this: I did not understand the various agile methodologies covered in the class on Saturday, say 21st November. And what you need to do is you need to post this question. And once you post this question, the support team will redirect it to the appropriate concerned person. So we have a dedicated support team which works 24/7. So you should get a response on the question or query what you have. And there's also this support number which is given, as you can see here. So there's a US number, there's an India number where you can reach out for any support related query. Now, if you have any technical issues which you face during the class, you'll have to select the LMS issue option. Or if you're not able to figure out anything on the LMS, or you're not able to locate any item on the LMS, you select LMS. And in case there was some technical issues, like you're not able to hear the instructor or the screen sharing was not enabled, in that case you have to select other technical issues as the option, and accordingly type in the question along with the description. And again, it will be directed to the support team, who will then pass it on to the relevant person who can respond to that. So I hope it's clear how to access the LMS and how to raise a support ticket and how to ask questions during the session. Any questions at this point in time? Fine. So let me start this module and let me open up the screen. So this is the module 1, which is Introduction to PMI ACP. And what we'll be covering in this is the basics of PMI ACP program to start with. Now, some brief idea about the program. So Edureka is one of the leading learning companies, and we have a set of experienced instructors who actually walk all the participants through the program. As we all know, we are currently having a live online class, and this class is getting recorded. So one good thing about this is that you can always refer to the class at any point in time. Unlike a classroom mode where the instructor teaches something and then vanishes away, here we are actually getting an opportunity to look at the class or what transpired in the class multiple times. That's the advantage of this. And we have actually divided this entire session into modules. At the end of each module, there is a quiz or an assessment which is expected to be done. And as I said, questions are always welcome, and this provides you an opportunity to ask questions during the class. At the end of each class, there would be a survey and we expect a feedback about the class. Now, the importance of this is there. Why? Because it helps us improve our delivery and it helps us improve and to serve you in a better way. Once you complete this course, you will get a certificate which will help you appear for the PMI-ACP certification program. And as I said, it's a 24/7 support which is available, and you can always raise a support ticket and reach out to the support team for any queries or clarifications related to the program. Okay. So as I said earlier, how do I join the class? You have to go to the website www.edureka.co. You have to log in using your credentials, username and password. Once you go there, you'll have to click on My Course tab and you have to select the course, which is PMI-ACP in this case. And once you select this PMI-ACP course, you will see the join class button which is available, and with that you will have to join the class. And I'm sure you have done the same thing today when you join this class. In case, as I said, if you have any challenges in any of this process, please feel free to let us know so that we can help you assist on that. Okay, so before I move ahead, I also wanted to understand what is your background and what has been your agile journey so far, and what is your key expectation from this class. So maybe if you can type this in the question window, that will give me a better perspective about you and your expectations from this program. Okay, thanks, Ranganath. Okay. How is this comparable to PMP? Which one is better? Okay, that's a very valid question. So let me answer that right away. See, PMP essentially covers project management from a general industry perspective. So if I am a construction project manager or if I am a project manager who's into pharmaceutical industry, PMP actually is what I usually go about and do. And of course, if I am an IT project manager, PMI-ACP is essentially restricted to information technology or to software engineering functions, because Agile as such is a methodology which is more prevalent in the software industry. So this certificate, PMI Agile Certified Practitioner, is targeted more for IT professionals and software professionals, because it talks about the way in which IT projects are executed nowadays. Whereas PMP talks about general project management, execution methodology, and PMP is something which is generic for all the industries, whereas Agile Certified Practitioner is a certificate which is targeted essentially for IT professionals. Why? Because most of the IT projects nowadays are being executed in an agile mode. I hope I have answered your question, Ranganath. Which one is better? Again, it's a very subjective question. I mean, there are people who do both the certification, PMP as well as PMI ACP certification. Each one has got a different criteria. Each one has got a different target audience, I would say. Is that clear, Ranganath? Okay, fine. So, Ranganath, so I'm assuming you are not yet done PMP certification. Is my assumption correct? Okay, fair enough. Fine. So let's move ahead. So just a general disclaimer. So this is our material which has been developed after a lot of investment of time, energy, and effort into this. So any reproduction in any form, whether in electronic form or in a physical hard copy format, without the permission from Edureka is strictly prohibited. And one important thing to understand is, since we are in the journey of becoming a PMI certified professional, there is a code of ethics which we need to adhere to. And any violation of any copy, any violation or any printing of this material without the permission of Edureka Corporation would be a violation of that PMI code of ethics. So this is just a general guideline which I thought that I'll share with you before we move ahead. So coming to the course topics, we have a total of 13 modules which will be covered in a span of 4 weeks, next 4 weeks, as I said. So we'll be having a total of 8 classes, as we know, and each class is of 3 hours. So our total course content is 24 hours, and we would be covering 13 modules. So what are these 13 modules? We have started with Introduction to PMI-ACP, which is the current module. Next, we move on to Agile Project Management Framework, which essentially talks about how an agile project works, what is the overall management framework or the structure in which an agile project is executed. Then module 3 essentially talks about the agile planning techniques. How do we monitor an agile project? How do we adapt to the changing circumstances? Module 4 talks about agile estimation. What are the various estimation techniques like sizing estimation, planning poker, then relative sizing. Module 5 talks about how does analysis and design activities happen in an agile project. Module 6, communication methodologies in an agile project. What is osmotic communication? How is the team which is self-organizing, self-collaborative in an agile project? How do they communicate with each other? Module 7 targets on the quality aspects in an agile project. Now, agile works on the principle of what is called as quality is baked in into my process. So we'll talk about more about that process in module 7. Module 8 talks about soft skill negotiations. So as an agile team member, how do I communicate with my peers? How do I communicate with the business or with the product owner? So the soft skill negotiation aspect of it comes in module 8. Module 9 is value-based prioritization. Agile talks about prioritizing the work, or from a business perspective also they will talk about how do we go about and prioritize our work, and those techniques, the prioritization techniques, is what we'll be studying in module 9. Module 10 talks about risk management in an agile project. What is the definition of risk? How do we identify risks in a project? How do we assess the risk? And how do we mitigate the risks in a project? So module 10 talks about risk management processes in an agile project. And module 11 is about key metrics in an agile project, or key measurement aspects in an agile project. So some of the metrics which we'll be studying include burn down chart. It includes my velocity. It will include my burn up chart, release burn down chart, etc. Module 12 is on value stream analysis, and this chapter talks about that in a flow or in an agile process, how do we identify the value added activities in the process? How do we identify the non-value added activities in the process? And how do we eliminate or reduce the non-value added activities in the process? So that will be my value stream analysis, chapter number 12. And module 13 would be the knowledge and skills which are required to work in an agile project. So these are the 13 modules what I will be having. Okay. Any question here before I move ahead? So this covers all the topics which are required for PMI-ACP certification. Now, of course, there are some reference books which are available for this, and I'll be talking about them as we move ahead. But from a course content perspective, whatever I just now said, it has all the contents. Okay, fine. So let's move ahead then. If there are no questions at this point in time. So at the end of this module, which is the Introduction to PMI-ACP Certification Program, one would be able to understand what is this exam all about. How do I go about the certification process? I'll tell you briefly on what are the agile domain areas. So there are a total of 7 domain areas. which we need to understand. And then we will also talk about exam criteria, requirements, and certification fee perspective. So this will give you an idea how does one go about and apply for PMI-ACP certification program. Okay, so let's first try to understand about PMI-ACP certification and what is this certification all about. What is the value of PMI-ACP certification? The exam pattern. What is the eligibility criteria? So how do I check whether I am eligible for PMI-ACP to give this exam or not? What is the PMI-ACP exam application process? The PMI code of ethics and professional conduct. And just now you asked me a question about recommended books. So yes, we do have a list of recommended books which are required for the exam. So as I said, PMI-ACP is a certificate which has been developed and designed by a body called as PMI or Project Management Institute, and it's one of the world's most recognized and demanded agile certification, and it actually demonstrates that you have the experience, education, and the competency to lead and direct agile projects. So this certificate is divided into agile principles, practices, tools, and techniques across all the agile methodologies. Now, one important aspect I would like to tell you here is that this certificate, unlike other certifications, it's not just restricted to one agile methodology. It encompasses multiple agile methodologies like Scrum, XP or extreme programming, Lean, Kanban. So it covers an entire gamut of agile methodologies. So there are certificates, other certificates which are just restricted themselves to one single methodology. But the advantage of this certificate is that it covers a whole range of agile practices and principles. So it also helps you to become more adaptable in that sense. So tomorrow, if let's say I'm working in a Scrum project and tomorrow I'm being asked to work in a project which uses another agile methodology, say Kanban, being certified as PMI ACP, the expectation is that I can seamlessly work into that project also, which is following Kanban or which is following Lean. So that's one of the advantage of this PMI ACP certificate. And over a period of time, this has become the third most popular PMI certification. So PMI has got a whole lot of certifications like project management professional, program management professional, scheduling professional, and as a risk management professional and business analysis professional. This PMI ACP has become the third most popular in the PMI list of certification, and as of 31st October 2013, of course this information is to be is now updated. Of course, there are more than 4,000 PMI ACP certified professionals worldwide. So this is some statistics or the background about this PMI ACP certification. Okay, moving ahead. So how does this certificate help me? So one interesting piece of statistics I would like to share with you. Uh, it has been estimated that in next 2 years, nearly 60 to 65% of the projects worldwide would go into the agile methodologies. And in fact, to tell you very honestly, this is a highly conservative estimate. The actual number could be very, very high. Now, obviously, if so many projects are going into an agile mode, there's going to be a huge demand for agile professionals worldwide. And this certificate will provide that opportunity, or it will give a platform for a person to actually work in an agile project. So once I'm certified in this certification, it gives my manager also a confidence that I'll be in a better position to handle agile projects. So that's the confidence which will my manager will have once I clear this exam, and this will give a structure to the agile body of knowledge to meet their needs. Any questions here before I move ahead? Okay. From knowledge and skills perspective, we'll be talking about values and principles. What are the various agile frameworks and terminology? We have agile methods and approaches, assessing and incorporating community and stakeholder values, stakeholder management, communication management, facilitation methods, knowledge sharing, written communication, leadership. How do we go about and build agile teams? How do we motivate resources? And co-location. And co-location is divided into two parts: physical co-location and virtual co-location. Any questions before I move ahead? Okay, thanks a lot. Knowledge and skills also includes global, cultural and team diversity. How does a team member work in a global environment, in a global cultural challenges? What is agile coaching? What is agile training, agile mentoring? What are the various developmental mastery models in an agile project? Self-assessment tools and techniques, participatory decision models, principles of system thinking. How does one go about problem solving in an agile project? What are the various prioritization techniques for the product? And how does business get involved in this prioritization exercise? Incremental delivery. What do we mean by iterative and an incremental methodology? And then agile discovery, agile sizing and estimation, and value-based analysis and decomposition. Okay, so these all also come under knowledge and skills. And continuing this journey, we will go into process analysis, continuous improvement, agile hybrid models. So many times we need to tailor the agile models to align with the organization culture, that is agile hybrid model. What are the key performance improvement areas in an agile project? How do we go about and create a agile project charter? So what are the things to be included in a charter? How do we make it more leaner from an agile perspective? What are the project accounting principles from an agile perspective? What are the various regulatory compliances we have to adhere to? So one of the key questions which is asked always is, will agile work in a project which has got lot of regulations? Or how do we tailor the process in order to handle these regulations from different stakeholders? So that is what comes in as a part of regulatory compliance. And finally, PMI code of ethics and professional conduct. So that will also be your knowledge and skills. I'm sure many of these things you would be doing in your real project. Is there anything, I mean, I'm sure you are doing this, right? Since you mentioned that you're working in an agile project. So I'm sure many of these things you would be working or actually doing in some form or the other form, right? Okay, that's a very nice question. Can we execute a fixed bid project in an agile mode? Okay, and I'm sure you would have heard this argument multiple times. So let me answer that question in two ways. Initially, when agile came into the industry, the whole idea was that my requirements are not clear. So obviously, if at all I want to execute this project, I cannot fix my budget, or I cannot say that this is the maximum funding I can give, right? But as we all know, over a period of time, most of the IT projects are challenged from a budget perspective, and even organizations have slashed budget to a major extent. Now, recently, in fact, when I say recently, in last 2 to 3 years, there has been a trend of executing agile projects in a fixed bid mode. But the way it works is slightly different. What we need to do in an agile in a fixed bid mode is we have to actually come out with a pilot engagement. We have to see how the pilot proceeds, and only on the basis of the execution of the pilot we'll be in a better position to come up with some kind of a predictability. So that's how typically an agile project is executed in a fixed bid mode. So when you say that it's a fixed bid mode, my budget will be fixed. So I have to give options to the customer that either you get X plus Y plus Z, or you will get only X plus Y and A. Okay. So these are some of the challenges which happen in an agile project in a fixed bid mode. Have I answered your question? The expected outcome of the pilot. Okay, so if I'm doing an agile project in a fixed bid mode, the expected outcome is coming out with kind of a predictability, how much work I can actually do per unit of time. Based on that, I will be in a better position to estimate. And then only as a provider of the service to the client, I'll tell them that within this time frame, within this budget, this is what I can do. That's the expected outcome of a pilot. It's more to come up with my what is called as velocity or my productivity, that how much is the productivity which I can gain, based on which I can estimate for the fixed bid project. Okay. So if you remember, I was talking about the PMI fact file, or the number of credential holders. And as you can see here, the total number of certified associate in project management is around 24,000. Project management professionals is almost touching 600,000. Program management professional is 977. Risk management professional is 2512 worldwide. Scheduling professionals are 1033. Agile certified practitioner, if you remember, I told you that it's the third most popular certification, is 4132, and the total PMI members are 4132. Okay. And there are 280 chapters in 84 countries worldwide. Communities of practice, there are total of 33 communities of practice, and the total number of PMBOK editions published or they are in circulation is 43,35,001. So that's what is some of the fact file or key statistics. Okay, fine. So let's move ahead. Okay, now what is the eligibility criteria to be PMI-ACP certified? And in order to be PMI-ACP certified, there are four main prerequisites. In fact, what I need. The first and the basic prerequisite is I should be holding a degree. Okay, so I should be having a secondary degree, a high school diploma, or an associate degree, or a global equivalent. Second, I need to have 2000 hours or 12 months of general project management experience, or general experience in working in a project team. And this experience should have been earned in last 5 years. The third prerequisite is I should have 1500 hours or 8 months of working on a project which is using any of the agile methodologies, and this should have been earned in last 3 years. So you need 2000 hours of general project exposure, plus you need 1500 hours of agile project exposure. Now, since you mentioned in the introduction that you have a total of 11 years of experience and last 2 years you have been working in an agile project, you are automatically meeting this criteria. And the last criteria is you should have attended a training in agile practices, and the minimum training requirement is 21 contact hours. This program is giving you a training of 24 contact hours. So as far as I am concerned, or what I can see here, is that you are meeting the eligibility criteria, whatever is listed here. Any questions on this? Okay, let me have a look at the question. Okay, so when you're filling the application form, you don't need to submit any proof. You just have to document the details in the application form. if audited, the current manager of your organization is the one who's expected to sign on the authenticity of this, and you have to submit that to PMI. But that is only applicable if your application is audited. But otherwise, you don't need to submit any proof. So what I suggest essentially is that once you fill in the application form, please make sure you show it to your current manager and tell him that if the application goes in for an audit, you are expecting him or her to sign on that as a verification exercise, and then only submit to PMI. Is that clear? Because it should not happen that there's some last minute surprise. So that's why I'm saying that it's more of a risk mitigation strategy, which I'm telling you that please get it, show it to your manager and then get it reviewed from him or her, and then you can submit it to PMI. Okay, I think Naveen, you have just now joined. Yeah, the class started 1 hour earlier, Naveen. So Naveen, which part of the world are you in? You're in India or you're somewhere else in another time zone? Okay, let me move ahead. So Naveen, the class is from 8:30 p.m. India time. So it's from 8:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. IST. That is the timing of the class. Now, this entire application process is an online process. So of course you can fill it in a paper-based format also, but it's an online process. Online process is what I would recommend. Okay, so this entire process is an online process, and what we need to do is we need to open a login with the PMI, or we need to create a login with PMI, and it usually takes 5 business days for this process to complete. Paper-based processing takes around 10 to 20 days to complete. Okay, so once your application is reviewed for completeness, you can go and pay the fees. So the procedure is, first you have to fill in the PMI-ACP application form. You have to submit it to PMI. PMI usually takes 4 to 5 business days to review it. Once PMI reviews the form, they will send you an email asking you to pay the fees. After a fee is paid, you will get an electronic notification about the exam scheduling, right? And otherwise, your application might also land into an audit. So once you pay the fees, two things will happen. Either your application is accepted or your application is selected for audit. If your application is accepted, you have 1 year within which you are supposed to schedule the exam. If your application is selected for audit, then you have to comply with the audit criteria. In order to register for the exam, you have to register on the website for Prometric. So Prometric is the body which is going to conduct this exam on behalf of PMI. So I think I have a couple of questions here. Okay. So Naveen, okay, I think Naveen is not able to hear me. Okay, fine, moving ahead. Now, as I said, one of the important things to also go through is the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. You can download this from the PMI website. So if you go to www.pmi.org, you can download this Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. This is a code of ethics which is applicable to all PMI members or non-members who are pursuing any PMI certification, or non-members who are about to, or who have actually already cleared a PMI certification program. So all these people are bound by the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. And PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct talks about 4 key things. It talks about responsibility, So as an agile practitioner, I take the ownership for whatever decisions I take. I don't try to shift blame to someone else. It talks about respect, having high regard for ourselves and also for others. It talks about fairness, which is basically making decisions and act with impartiality and with objectivity, and honesty, understanding the truth and act in a truthful manner. So what you need to do is you need to download the PMI Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. To do that, you have to go to the PMI website and you can freely download this Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct. Any questions at this point in time? Okay, let me check the audio here. No, Naveen, the mute which is shown is muted from your side, but you should be able to hear. Okay, moving ahead. Your exam results are reported in two ways. One, of course, is pass or fail, whether you have cleared the exam or you have not cleared the exam. So that is pass or fail. And so on an overall rating, once you answer 120 questions, you will get a final result whether you have passed the exam or you have failed the exam. The second level of result is assignment of proficiency. So for each of the 7 domains, you are assigned a scale whether you are proficient or whether you are moderately proficient or you are below proficient. So that is the 2 level of what we have as the result what is getting reported. And PMI defines proficiency as if I'm given a scale of proficient for any domain, it means that I have got higher than average knowledge in this domain. Moderately proficient indicates average level of knowledge in this domain, and below proficiency or below proficient indicates below average level of knowledge in this domain. And one good thing is that once you give the last question and once you submit the test paper, the result is immediately displayed on screen, and you get a provisional certificate initially, and after 2 to 3 weeks you can get you will get the actual certificate couriered to your home. Okay, so that is how your exam result is immediately declared on the screen itself. In the unfortunate event that one is unable to clear the exam, you can take a retest within the eligibility period. So we have a 1-year eligibility period to take this exam. Within this 1-year eligibility period, you can take the exam up to 3 times. Okay, so if at all, unfortunately, if you fail the first time, you can always take it 2 more times, and the fee for this is $275, which is the re-examination fee. Now in case one is unable to clear this exam even after 3 attempts, then one needs to wait for 1 year from the date of last test before reapplying for the PMI credential. So that's the only criteria which one needs to clearly understand. So otherwise you're given 3 attempts in a year, but unfortunately if one is unable to clear this within 3 attempts, then you have to wait for 1 year before you can go and give this exam or appear for this exam again. Okay. Some tips and tricks from the exam perspective. So generally this is what has been the trend. You get approximately 50 questions on principles and practices around Agile, including estimation, prioritization, and team dynamics. There are around 25 questions related to the roles in a Scrum team, like who's a Scrum Master, who's a product owner, what is the team, and what are the roles and responsibilities for each of this role. Scrum ceremonies and artifacts. You get around 25 questions. So this the important Scrum ceremonies, as we all know, is release planning, retrospective, sprint planning, review, burn down, wall boards, backlog management, story maps, etc. So you get 25 questions in that. Extreme programming, you get 10 questions. So extreme programming or XP is one of the agile techniques wherein you get 10 questions. Agile value stream mapping, you get approximately between 5 to 10 questions. In portfolio management, you get about again 5 to 10 questions. And same for risk management, again 5 to 10 questions. And lean software development, you get approximately 5 questions. So this is some of the tips and tricks from an exam perspective. Any questions here before I move ahead? This information, Ranganath, is of this 120 questions what you get in exam. This has the breakup by which are the most popular set of questions. It's that information. Is this clear, Ranganath? Thanks. So we have covered the first session in which we talked essentially about what is PMI Agile Certified Practitioner exam, what are the benefits of this exam, and what is the eligibility criteria, what is the exam pattern, how does one go about giving this exam, and how does one register for this exam. And as I said, all the modules are being recorded. You can always refer to the recording at any point in time. So with this, we complete the first module. And any questions on the first module before I go to the next class or the next module, if I were to say? Any questions? That's a good question, Ranganath. Unfortunately, but I do not have an answer for that because PMI has not published those percentage of correct questions required. But if you ask me, generally speaking, if in the practice exams you are scoring more than 75%, the probability of passing is very, very high. That's the only thing which I can tell at this point in time. So if there are no questions, then I think, okay, let me check one thing with Naveen. Just give me 2 minutes and I'll just check with him. What is the status? Okay, so we will be then moving on to the next class, and the next module talks about what is Agile, what is Lean, what is an Agile manifesto document, what are the Agile principles, what are the various agile project management frameworks like Scrum, XP, feature driven development, and Crystal. So that is what we'll be talking about in the next module. So let me open up the next module. And so let me open up the next module what I have. So we already covered the first module, and now let me open up the next module. I hope you are able to see this module. Okay, so let's move ahead then with the second module, and it talks about Agile Project Management Framework. Okay, fine. Thanks, Naveen. So, Naveen, what was the issue exactly? If you can just let me know so that in case of any further issue tomorrow or in the subsequent classes, we can be in a better position to address that issue. Okay, fine. So Naveen, before we go ahead, just if you could share your brief background about your experience, what you have, and also your agile experience. If you can just type it in this question window, that would really be great. So that I understand what are your expectations and what essentially is your background. Yeah, Naveen, are you there? Okay, 12 years of experience. Okay. And what's been your agile journey so far? Or any experience in agile projects? Okay, great. And I'm assuming you're also looking for PMI-ACP certification. So you plan to give this exam once this training gets over. That's correct, right? I'm in the understanding. Okay, great. I mean, what you can do is we are already getting this session recorded. Since you joined in late, you can have a look at the recording. Recording would be available 8 hours post this training. So somewhere 8 hours after this training, the recording of this session would be made available to you. So what I suggest is before tomorrow's class, please make sure you go through the recording so that you are if the class number 1 was basically on introduction only about ACP and the exam pattern. So what I request is please go through the recording. Fine. So let's move on to module 2, which talks about Agile project management framework. And in this module, what we will be doing is we'll be talking about what is the concept of Agile and Lean, what essentially is an Agile project management life cycle. So if I'm executing a project in an Agile mode, what is the Agile project management life cycle? What is the concept behind iterative and incremental delivery? We always say that Agile projects follow iterative and incremental model. So we'll talk about that. What is the key principles behind Agile manifesto and what are the key Agile principles? And what is the differentiation between Scrum and Kanban? So that is what is our course content for this module. Now, as we all know, traditionally projects have been developed using what is called as waterfall methodology. And in a waterfall methodology, what used to happen was that customer used to give a set of requirements. The engineering team or the design team used to prepare a high level design document. Then we used to do analysis, then actual software development, followed by coding, followed by testing. One of the main challenges in this traditional waterfall model was that once my requirements were frozen, what used to happen was that changing requirements was a big challenge. And usually what used to happen was that since I was consolidating all the requirements of the project at one go, my project used to take long time to deliver those requirements. And many times what the business wanted drastically changed over a period of time. So if you see this diagram which is being depicted here, it actually shows what the customer wanted and what we actually delivered to them. And the reason for this happening was that there was no interaction between the customer and the project team. So the customer used to just give a set of requirements. These requirements were interpreted by the lead or the project manager. Then even the analysts and the designers used to interpret in a different way, and even the programmer actually interpreted it in a different way. And as an end result of this, what used to happen was what was expected by the customer was not at all delivered by the project team, and this was kind of a scary scenario which we found happening in a waterfall model. Now, there are a lot of myths related to Agile. So when Agile came into existence, Agile talks about having shorter iterations. So instead of capturing the entire requirements in one go, we capture a smaller requirement, we work on it, we deliver it, and get a feedback from the customer. But over a period of time, there are a lot of myths which got associated with Agile. And one of the most commonly heard myth is Agile means no documentation, which is not correct. Agile essentially means only do the documentation what is required for the project. Don't do any extra documentation. Another myth is that Agile project means zero quality or no quality, which is also not correct. Agile says that quality is something which is baked in into your process. So quality is something not to be tested separately, but it is ingrained in my project. So that is what is quality being baked in. No process being followed in Agile is also a misnomer or a misconception, which is not the case. Again, no architecture, another misnomer or a misconception. Is it a cult or is it more like a fad? Again, these are some of the myths as I'm saying. No discipline, again not correct. There has to be some discipline and an approach or a structured approach to it. And Agile is not a framework at the end of the day. It's the way we do things. So these are some of the myths which got cultivated over a period of time. And these were kind of a devil's advocate for a team or for an organization which moved into the Agile journey. And obviously the reasons were because of the way Agile was being marketed across. So Agile, let me tell you, is not a framework. It's a mindset or a way of doing things. And some of the key principles of Agile are welcoming changes, even in the later part of the development, motivating people. So you have to make sure that your team members are constantly motivated. There has to be a closer and a quick feedback loop between the customer, between the project team, so that you deliver something very quickly. So there has to be a continuous delivery of work product. We always do incremental development in an agile project, and we slice the requirement into smaller components and we deliver the slice. So Agile at the end of the day is all about divide and conquer. We learn and we explore through discovery, and Agile works on the principle, as I said, on continuous improvement. So that is what is an Agile mindset. It's more related to the way we execute things or the way we work by slicing the requirements into smaller components and managing the smaller pieces of the work. So instead of coming up with bulky requirements and then delivering them, we actually work on slicing the requirement and working on the individual slices. So it's more of a mindset change rather than a framework change or a policy change, because Agile essentially talks about continuous improvement, faster delivery, and closer feedback loops with the key project stakeholders. Okay. So lean. Lean is a concept which has been derived heavily from the manufacturing industry. So if you remember, post World War II, Japan was known for poor quality products, but Japanese manufacturing companies invested a lot in removing waste and improving the overall productivity of the manufacturing process. And lean was born actually out of Japanese manufacturing companies. And as you can see a quote there, it says that the most dangerous kind of waste is the waste we do not recognize. So many times we tend to ignore or turn a blind side to the waste which is lying around us, and we fail to recognize that. What is the definition of waste? Waste means that anything which does not add value to the original process. So anything which does not add value to the original process is what is called as a waste. And waste does not contribute to value add, as I said. For example, let's say I am having an electronics retrieval system, and I also keep a hard copy of the document. That could be waste from a lean perspective. Okay, so my objective in a lean project is to identify what are the non-value added activities or waste. So waste is also called as non-value added activity, and to either reduce the non-value added activities or to completely eliminate those. So whenever I analyze the process, I look at the process, I find out what are the value added activities in the process, what are the non-value added activities in the process, and I try to eliminate or reduce the non-value added activities. So lean talks a lot about improving the productivity of the men, improving productivity of the machines, efficient utilization of resources, optimum use of budget for the project. and we do this in order to achieve improved business performance. We make sure that the solution is aligned to the business requirements and to the business result. So that is what comes under your lean framework. Now, as I said, this is a framework which is predominantly used in the manufacturing industry. However, software industry has also derived lean principles from manufacturing, and they have tailored it as per the requirements of the software industry, right? So that is what is your lean framework or lean methodology. Okay, moving ahead. So lean, as I said, focuses exclusively on eliminating waste. It's at the end of the day, it's nothing but thinking it in a totally radically different manner, or out of the box thinking, as they say. So lean is eliminating waste, amplify the learning what you have gained, decide as late as possible, and this is also called as last responsible moment. So last responsible moment is the point in time up to which you have multiple choices available. Once you reach the last responsible moment, you have to take a decision now whether you'll go by solution A or solution B or solution C. So last responsible moment is also called as a project manager, I decide as late as it is possible for me to decide without without impacting the quality part of it, or without impacting the quality part of the decision. So that is what is my last responsible moment. But when I'm doing last responsible moment, my objective is also to deliver as quickly as possible. uh, One of the lean principles is my team has to be empowered. So it's empowering the team, and quality is something which is baked in or built in the lean process. And I have to see the entire end-to-end picture rather than concentrating on one part of the picture. I have to concentrate on the entire flow of the picture when I'm doing the lean methodologies. And Toyota is one of the companies which has pioneered lean to a great extent. So they are one of the pioneers of lean. Same with Motorola. So these are two organizations which have extensively used lean. So what are the benefits of lean? The key benefits of lean, what we have is it helps you to identify and eliminate waste. So first of all, it will help you to identify the entire value stream map, and we'll be covering value stream map as we move ahead. Then it allows you to identify waste and eliminate waste. It helps you to continuously improve the product, and it helps you to specify the value of the product in the eyes of the customer. So these are advantages of lean. Okay, so these are some of the advantages of lean what you have. And from a lean perspective, the waste is of three types. Now these are Japanese terms here: muda, muri, and mura. So muda stands for work which absorbs resource but adds no value. For example, if the work can be done by one person, I add two people, which means I'm absorbing a resource but it's not adding any value as such. Muri stands for unreasonable work that is imposed on workers and machines. So if I'm giving a task to my workers which is unreasonable or which is not adding any value, that is called as Muri. And Mura is called as work coming in drips and drabs with sudden period of rush rather than a constant or a regular flow. So it's something like this, that on one day I am occupied for 10 hours at a stretch, but on the next day I'm occupied only for 2 hours. So there are peaks and troughs, sudden peaks and sudden troughs. So these are the waste types what I have in lean. These are Japanese term muda, muri, and mura. Okay, so that is what is the lean waste types. Okay. Now, at this point, can we take a 10 minutes break and resume back? So we were talking about benefits of lean and what are the waste types in lean. And these are the three essential waste types: Muda, Muri, and Muda, Muri, and Mura. These are the three waste types in a lean project. Now, systems thinking, that's another way. And what system thinking talks about is what we have is a series of systems, and they are made of components which actually work together to achieve the overall objectives. So when we talk about system thinking, we say that we have various systems, and these systems are made of individual components, and together they work in unison to achieve the overall objectives. So any system has got an input, it has got a output, and it has got an internal processing or throughput. And when I do a systems thinking or a system analysis, some of the important questions which I ask is, where do we want to be, or what is our to be state? Where are we currently now, or the as is state, and how do we go from an as is state to a to be state? So where do we want to be? How will we know when we get there, or what is the verification that we have reached there? Where are we currently now, or the as is state? How do we go to the to be state, which is what are the ways in which we can reach there? What are the changes which I need to do in my existing environment to reach at a to be state? So that is what comes in as a part of my systems thinking. I think of the entire system as a big piece, and I think of the individual components which make up the big piece. So that is what is my system thinking going to be. Okay. Moving ahead. Coming to system thinking in detail, it's a part of my empirical process control. So what is empirical process control? Empirical process control talks about all the activities related to a system. And what I do in empirical process control is I make some observations, I do some experiments, and I do a continuous cycle of inspecting. So all this comes in my empirical process. So I inspect the process, I look at the existing process, I adapt the process, and I establish transparency. And there are two types of processes in this. Of course, uh, one is a single loop learning, and another one is a double loop learning. So what we do in system thinking is we do some observations, we do some experiments, and based on the experiments, we adapt it. So in a single loop learning, what happens is, moment I observe some discrepancy, I immediately make the change. So change is immediately made without any questions or reasoning. In a double loop learning, if at all I observe some discrepancy, I also need to apply a due diligence, or I need to be sure that the change which is to be done is convincing enough. And then only we go ahead and make the changes. So the difference between single loop and double loop is that in a single loop learning, the changes are made immediately, whereas in a double loop learning, the changes are made only after a thorough analysis and a feedback is taken whether the change is really required or not. In case you find that the change is not convincing, then you need to discard the plan. So this is what is the difference between a single loop learning vis-a-vis a double loop learning. So why is system thinking important? Because as I said, system thinking helps you find out which is that smaller level components which are causing a problem. So it helps you in quick analysis and decision making, and you can get an idea that which is the component of the system, which is the bottleneck, and how do I go about and change that bottleneck or that problem area. So it helps me identify that small piece which is causing that bigger problem. Say for example, my laptop is constantly switching off. Now one of the components in this laptop system could be a battery, and actually the problem could be in battery rather than the power situation at home. The problem could actually be in a battery. So if I do a system thinking kind of an analysis, it will help me identify which is the problem area which is causing that small piece which is causing the major problem. Now, how do I compare a traditional project management with agile project management? Now, in a traditional project, I essentially freeze all my requirements in advance, and the focus is more on upfront planning and upfront documentation. In an agile project, my primary focus is on customer interaction and satisfaction. So I stress a lot of importance on the way we interact with the customers, the way we communicate, and that is what we do in a agile project. In a traditional project management, change is something which is resisted, because in order to make a change, you have to work from the top to the bottom. So in a traditional project management, we have the classic waterfall methodology where we freeze the requirements first, then we design as per requirement, we code as per the design, and then we test. And in case any change is introduced in between, it becomes a nightmare to implement that change. Why? Because I might have to apply the change right from the requirement part of the project. So change is something resisted in a traditional project, whereas in an agile project, change is something which is welcomed, and changes can be incorporated at any time in an agile project. In a traditional project, my focus is more on how rather than why, and agile focuses more on the why perspective, right? So that is another difference between a traditional project and an agile project. A traditional project talks about a command style control where the project manager acts like a commander in action, and he or she dictates the work which the team is supposed to do. Agile, on the other hand, is a self-organization and cross-functional team. So agile teams are self-organizing. So the team decides what is that they need to do, and the team is a cross-functional team. Okay, traditional project management focuses on scope-based delivery, whereas agile project focuses on time box delivery. So in an agile project, your time is fixed. Within that time, we are supposed to do whatever we can deliver. So that is what is my agile project management. And traditional project management stresses a lot on contract, whereas agile project management stresses a lot on customer collaboration and communication. So contract is not something which is more important in an agile project. It's more important is customer collaboration and your customer focus. Any questions on these differences before I move ahead? Is there any relationship between lean and systems thinking? Okay, so the discussion, okay. So I believe you heard me talking about system thinking, right, Ranganath? I mean, it's not directly coming in exam, but it's one way in which lean can be done. So one of the techniques in which lean can be done is through system thinking, where we look at the entire system and we find out which is the component which is causing a problem. That is what is system thinking all about. It's one of the ways in which you can identify waste. There are other ways also in which you can identify waste, namely the other method is process flowchart, where we map the entire process. That is also another way in which I can do system thinking or lean methodology. And once I do a process flowchart, it will tell me which are the bottleneck process or which are the processes which are causing a bottleneck, and accordingly I can take an action based on that. Okay. Moving ahead. Okay, so let's take a quiz here quickly, and you can key in the answer here. Okay, so can you tell me the answer for this question? C. Agile processes promote dash. Yes, it is sustainable development. That's correct. That's absolutely right. Okay. Next question. I'll come to that. Uh, it is iterative and incremental methodology, not development. Development sustainable is correct. Agile is an iterative and an incremental methodology. But when they talk about development, it is sustainable only. Okay, what about this question? Which of the following is not a characteristic? And the answer which I'm getting here is D. And let's see the answer. Yes, this is not a characteristic of an agile project, showing dependency of one task over another task. That's not something agile, that's a characteristic of a traditional waterfall model. Next, okay, so let's move ahead, and let's talk about some of the life cycles in a project. So we have predictive life cycle, we have iterative life cycle, and we have adaptive life cycles in an agile project. Now in a predictive life cycle, what happens is the project scope or what are the activities which are to be delivered are planned as early as possible in a project, and over a period of time, the assumption is that these scope elements will not change. And this is how traditionally projects were being developed. So our waterfall methodology or the software development life cycle or the SDLC model, what we say, it was based on this predictive model. And what this model actually said was that what a project team would be doing is they would be coming up with a predictable model in which we define our requirements well in advance, and these requirements are not something which will change over a course of time. What essentially is going to happen is the requirements or the scope would be frozen in advance, and any changes which comes in the later part of the life cycle will be very costly to change. And one of the key lacuna in this methodology was that the entire project would be visible to the stakeholder only at the end of the project cycle. So if there's a year-long project which will have planning, analysis, design, coding, and testing, then the final result or the final product will be only available at the end of the year. So that was what was the predictive life cycle, and that is how traditionally projects were being delivered before agile actually came into existence, right? So this is called as a predictive model or a predictive analysis. In an iterative analysis, or it's also called as iterative and incremental methodology, what we have is we have series of iterations in which we do the entire phase. So what happens is these iterations are repeated over a period of time, and if at all the changes are observed or that there are changes in the scope, they need to be managed. So what happens in this project is each iteration consists of my mini waterfall kind of a situation. So in each iteration, when I start, there will be requirements, then there will be design, then implementation and testing, and then review. And that's how my project will get completed. And my iterations are of duration of say a quarter, or 2 to 3 months would be the duration of my iteration. So within each iteration, I will do all the activities like requirement analysis, design, implementation, testing, and review. So that is what will happen in each iteration. Now coming next to what are your adaptive life cycle planning. Now before that, Who do you think should participate in iteration planning? Any thoughts? So any thoughts who should be involved in iteration planning? Okay, entire team is what you are telling me. And let's see the answer. Absolutely right. It's the entire team which has to participate in the iteration planning exercise. That's correct. Okay, fine. Moving ahead. Adaptive life cycles. Now, adaptive life cycles are in a way iterative life cycles, but the iterations are of very, very small duration and they are fast paced iteration. Now, in this model, the team swiftly responds to any changes which are happening. So the characteristics of an adaptive life cycle is, in these kind of projects you will find the iterations are of duration of 1 week, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and it is not possible to define the entire scope upfront, and changes which are found during the project or changes which take place during the project are handled in rapid iterations. The end result is usually delivered in 2 to 4 weeks of an iteration. And so in a particular, so what happens is we have a release. A release can be a 6 month release or a quarterly release or a yearly release. But within that release, you have multiple sprints or iterations. In each iteration, you would be having planning, analysis, design, coding, testing, and the expectation is that at the end of the iteration, you are delivering something which is workable to the customer. So your iterations are of such a short space that you are delivering a working software at the end of an iteration. Now, typically your product-based companies work on this model. So let's say if I'm developing an antivirus software, and let's say I deliver a first piece of version to the business, or I deliver a version 1.0 to the business. Every 2 weeks, I'll be releasing a new antivirus software into the market, which will actually make sure that it is actually able to find out which are the current viruses. So you're typically your product development companies like Yahoo, Google, they actually work on an adaptive life cycle where at the end of every iteration of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you are delivering some valuable software to the business. Is that clear what is an adaptive life cycle? And Scrum is one of the most popular adaptive life cycle model in an agile methodology. Any questions here before I move ahead? Okay, the difference between iterative and adaptive life cycle is, in an iterative life cycle, my iterations are of somewhat longer duration. So my iteration is usually a quarter or 3 months, whereas in an adaptive life cycle, my iteration is of a shorter duration, say in weeks, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So that's the major difference between iterative life cycle and adaptive life cycle. In an adaptive life cycle, at the end of 2 weeks iteration or sprint as they call, I have to deliver a potential shippable product, or I have to deliver a working software to the business. Whereas in an iterative life cycle, I have around 3 months of iteration. Is the difference clear between the two? Yeah, are you there, Ranganath? Is the difference clear? Yes, at the end of iteration also a production ready code is expected, but again in an iterative lifecycle they are not that rigid. I mean, you can deliver something, but they are not that rigid, I would say that. But the key difference is, in an adaptive life cycle, the duration is very, very short and it's a swift development. What happens in an adaptive life cycle? Moving ahead. Okay, so yes, in either cases, production deployment is optional. That's correct. So let's take this a quick question here. I mean, I know we have not yet covered risk analysis, but just give it a shot. Okay, let me see the answer. The answer which you're giving is, okay, you're not, okay. It is C, both qualitative and quantitative risk analysis is the answer. And yes, that's correct. You have to do both qualitative as well as quantitative risk analysis. Okay. Moving ahead. Okay. Now, in a traditional project management, we used to have what is called as a iron triangle. And what that iron triangle said was that in any project, there are three main constraints. And the three constraints in a project are scope, time, and cost. So in the traditional project management, scope was fixed. Okay, so when I captured the requirements upfront, I was freezing the scope of the project. Time and cost were the key variables. Okay, and if I change any one of the variables, then also it had got an impact on other variables. For example, if I increase the scope, it will increase the time and cost. If I reduce the time, it will have an impact on other parameters, right? So in a traditional iron triangle, the scope was something which was fixed. Now the agile triangle is essentially opposite, or the agile iron triangle is opposite of traditional iron triangle. In an agile iron triangle, your time and cost is fixed. So you're time boxing it, your time and cost is fixed. Scope is something which is varying. Now there's a further enhancement to the agile iron triangle, which is called as the classic agile triangle. And in that, what we say is value is something which is fixed. So the value which you're giving to the customer is something which is fixed. Quality and constraints now include scope, time, and cost, or scope, schedule, and cost. And your quality, which is your reliable, adaptable product, is something which is variable. But what you are more concerned about in an agile triangle is value. Value is something which you cannot compromise from a customer's perspective. So what happens here in an agile triangle is our traditional mindset of a waterfall model in which scope is fixed entirely gets reversed, or it gets flipped. So that's why it's called as flipping the agile triangle. You are actually overturning it, and what you have is a totally different or a contrasting agile triangle where value is fixed but quality and constraints are somewhat variable here in a classic agile triangle. Okay, moving ahead. What do we mean by incremental and iterative delivery? Now, it's very important to understand these terms. Incremental means the product gets incremented as we move along. Okay, so it's like that. Okay, so let me take an example of a bank ATM. Today, when I go to a bank ATM, I can do any bank ATM for that matter. I can do a whole lot of functions. For example, I can withdraw money from my account. I can deposit money into my account. I can order a checkbook. I can actually do a funds transfer. I can actually change the password of my ATM card, right? I can do a whole lot of features available in an ATM machine. Now, obviously, if I just take back you to history, say around 20-25 years back, when ATMs were first developed, the only feature available in an ATM machine of a bank was that as a user, I can withdraw money from my account. In the second iteration of this software development, or in the second iteration, they came up with an increment to the product. So when we say incremental, it means you are enhancing the feature or you are adding something new. So for example, in the second feature or in the second level, they might have incremented this software with deposit as well as withdrawal. The third incremental would be deposit, withdrawal, and funds transfer. So that is what is incremental delivery. So we keep on incrementing the software. We keep on enhancing the version as we move along. Iterative delivery means that the software is built in several iterations. So each iteration will have design, development, testing, etc. and we get the details of the iteration as we move forward. So agile projects are incremental and iterative delivery mechanisms, and in an incremental and iterative model, we deliver the product to the customer and we deliver them in iterations basically. So is the difference clear between iterative and incremental? Iteration is a way of achieving incremental delivery. That's how I would like to put it. Is it clear? Practical example of iterative, as I said, this bank ATM project. Today, when we are having a whole lot of functions, these would have developed in multiple iterations. So probably 10 or 15 iterations, we would have developed the entire ATM software what we have today. So iterative contributes to incremental delivery. What happens in iterative delivery is we divide the project into iterations. We say at the end of iteration 1, I will have cash withdrawal facility. At the end of iteration 2, I will have deposit. At the end of iteration 3, I will have pin change. At the end of iteration 4, I will have a cash deposit, a cash withdrawal facility which is enhanced. For example, at the end of iteration 4, I might say that when a customer wants to withdraw money, I give him an option of the denomination of the currency notes. Whether he wants $10, so let's say if I want to withdraw $100, whether I want a $10 bill or a $5 bill or a $2 bill. That is what is the next iteration, right? So iterative contributes to incremental. That's absolutely right. Correct. Okay. Moving ahead. So I was in fact going to show you this picture, but since you asked me this question, I thought that I will show you this. So this is incremental delivery on top. The picture of Mona Lisa being developed in incrementally. That is incremental delivery, and iterative is something like this. Okay, so over a period of iterations, we refine the product. We refine the product which we are developing. Is that clear? So iterative contributes to incremental development as we discussed earlier. Okay. There's a question here. Okay, thanks. Yeah. So moving ahead. Agile Manifesto. Now, Agile Manifesto is a document which was developed by 17 software developers in February 2001. And these 17 developers met at a ski resort, and the objective of this meeting was to come up with lightweight methodologies for software development. And Agile Manifesto talks about 4 value statements. What it says is that individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. So what Agile Manifesto says that although the value items or although the items on the right hand side have got a value, as a professional, we value the items on the left more. So the items on the left carry more value than the items on the right. It doesn't mean don't do items on the right hand side. What it means is that the items on the left hand side, which is individuals and interactions, working software, customer collaboration, and responding to change, have got more value than the items on the left on the right hand side, sorry. Okay, so the items on the left hand side carry more value than the items on the right hand side. So these are the key value statements of an Agile Manifesto, and this was developed by 17 developers who came at a ski resort. Now these 4 value statements, what do they mean, or what is the significance of these 4 value statements? What it means is that in any agile project, we give more focus or value to the individuals and the interactions which they have with within themselves. Rather than always showing what the process is or what the tool is, we give more value to the individual interactions and communication which happens, rather than focusing on comprehensive documentation. Our focus should be on creating working software as early as possible. Instead of always taking the guise of a contract, our focus should be on keeping the customer engaged and establishing collaboration with the customer. So customer collaboration over contract negotiation. The last value statement says that rather than blindly following a plan, we should be responsive to changes, or we should be flexible and adaptable to change. So that is responding to change over following a plan. So these are the 4 value statements in an agile manifesto. Any query on this before we go to the 12 principles? Okay, so this you can see on a site called www.agilemanifesto.org. www.agilemanifesto.org is the website where you can see this document. Okay, where the Agile Manifesto document is visible there. Now these 4 values get divided into 12 principles. And what are these 12 principles? The 12 principles are listed here. Early delivery of working software by satisfying customers. So satisfaction or customer satisfaction is the topmost priority. Second one says welcoming changes in requirement even late in the development life cycle. So change is not something which we should be afraid of, but which we should be welcoming even if it is coming late in the software development cycle. Delivering working software frequently, preferably in weeks rather than in months. That is the third principle. The fourth principle says development team and the business team work together, or they collaborate together. That is your fourth principle. Fifth one is the primary measure of success is your working software. So the primary measurement or the proof of completion is my working software. 6 is nothing but retrospective. Retrospective is a ceremony in which the team regularly inspects their work, or it reflects on their work, what went right, what did not go right, and then they tune and adjust their behavior. So that is what is your retrospective. So the team regularly reflects on the work and then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. Number 7 is build projects around motivated individuals. So one of the key principles or one of the key assumption is the resources are motivated in an agile project. So projects are built around motivated individuals. Principle 8 says the most effective and efficient method of conveying information within and from the development team is through face-to-face communication, not fact-to-face. It should be face-to-face. So the most effective and efficient method of communication, or let me put it this way, face-to-face communication is the best form of communication as far as agile project is concerned. Moving on to the remaining 4 principles. The remaining 4 principles are coming on the next slide, and which says that continuous attention to technical excellence and good design practices. So our focus as an agile team should be on continuous attention to technical excellence and good design principles. Then we talk about simplicity. Simplicity says keeping the things as simple as possible. And the definition of simplicity from an agile perspective is the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. So becoming more leaner, if you ask me. So becoming more leaner and only doing the work what is required to be done, not doing any extra work. That is what is called as simplicity is the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, which is also essential. 11 talks about the best architecture requirement and design emerges from self-organizing team. Remember I told you that agile teams are self-organizing team. So the best architecture and design appears from the self-organizing team. And the last principle talks about working in an agile project at a sustainable development. So we have to always make sure that we maintain a constant pace rather than having highs and lows. We actually work at a constant pace. So agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsored developers and users should be able to maintain a constant pace in a definitive manner. So these are the 12 principles of Agile Manifesto. So we have 4 value statements and we have 12 principles. So I'll just take a pause here and take any questions on this before I move ahead. Okay, fair enough. So moving ahead. There is also another document which has come out recently, which is called as Agile Declaration of Interdependence. Sorry. And what it says is, as an agile project team, we should increase return on investment by making continuous flow, keeping value as the focus. So the value is something which we have to keep focus on, and we deliver or we increase the return on investment. Second principle says deliver reliable results by engaging customers in frequent interaction and shared ownership. So that is the second agile declaration of interdependence. The third one says unleash creativity in your project and innovation by recognizing that individuals are the ultimate source of value and creating an environment where they can make a difference. So this talks about empowering your team members and giving them an opportunity to explore and take risks and come out with innovative solutions. The fourth point talks about boosting performance through group accountability for results and shared responsibility for team effectiveness. So how do we go about boosting the performance, overall performance of the team members? How does the group accounts itself for result, takes accountability of results and shared responsibility for team effectiveness? That is the next point. The last point is improve effectiveness and reliability through situation specific strategies, processes and practices. So this talks about taking action based on the situation. So whatever is the situation, we take an action based on that and we improve the process. So the idea is to come up with a better process. So let's say if I am producing a software and I find that there are a lot of defects which are coming in the process, I might immediately train my team members. I might ask my team members to immediately go into training where they learn how to reduce the number of defects or how to improve the code coverage. So that is what is last point, which talks about improving the effectiveness on the run. So when I am in the project, I'm actually improving on the effectiveness of the project, okay, by situation specific actions or strategies, processes and practices. So these are the statements which are coming in Agile Declaration of Interdependence. Okay, now coming to what are the most popularly used agile methodologies or frameworks. Now, as I said, there are many methodologies which exist and this exam covers most commonly used methodologies in the industry. If you take any other certification, if you remember, as I said when we started this class, it will only be a certificate for that methodology. For example, certified Scrum Master, you will only get about Scrum Master questions in that. You won't get anything about XP, you won't get anything about Crystal or DSDM. The advantage of this exam is that it covers almost all the agile methodologies, all the popular ones, let me put it that way. And some of the important ones which are covered include Scrum, which is by far the most popular agile methodology worldwide, extreme programming or XP, lean Kanban, which is a combination of lean and Kanban. Then we have DSDM or dynamic system development model, Crystal, then evolutionary project management or EVO, adaptive system management, which is ASD, feature driven development, the short form is SDD, and last but not the least we have agile unified process. So these are some of the popularly used agile frameworks in the industry, but nearly 70% of the projects worldwide use Scrum or a variation of Scrum. The next number would come is of XP followed by lean Kanban. So the first three, the top three ones are the most popular ones: Scrum, extreme programming, and lean Kanban. Okay. So coming to Scrum. Scrum, there are two people who developed Scrum. Okay. And Scrum, this is a high level diagram of Scrum or a high level framework of Scrum what we have. So Scrum was developed, as I said, by two people, Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland. So these are the two people who developed Scrum methodology. So from an exam perspective, you will need to focus on Scrum, obviously. You will need to focus on extreme programming, and you will need to focus on lean Kanban, the top three, as I said. These are the ones on which you get majority of questions. The top three. Is that clear? Okay. So coming to Scrum framework, Scrum, as I said, was developed by two people, Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland. So these are the two gentlemen who are credited with creating Scrum framework. And Scrum essentially talks about a framework in which we get inputs. The product owner gets inputs from customers and team members. The product owner captures these inputs into a document called as a product backlog. So product backlog is a prioritized list of requirements, and this priority is on the business value, and a product backlog will always show the high priority items on the top, low priority items will come at the bottom, and the PO, as the short form of the product owner, he or she is responsible for creating and maintaining the product backlog. Now the team undertakes what is called as a sprint planning meeting. So every sprint, it could be a 2-week duration or a 3-week duration. In every sprint, there's a sprint planning meeting which happens at the start of the sprint. In this meeting, the team picks up the product backlog and it starts picking up the items from the product backlog. And it divides the items into tasks, and the team decides how many items of the product backlog they can handle in the current sprint. So they come up with a document which is called as a sprint backlog. A sprint backlog is a subset of the product backlog, and this decides that how much work they are committing in a sprint. So out of the total capacity available, how much they are actually saying that, okay, this is what we can do. And this is a commitment which is made to the product owner. Now, if my sprint is of say 1 month or a 2-week, every 24 hours, my team meets together at the same place and they conduct what is called as a daily stand-up meeting. So in a daily stand-up meeting, the team answers 3 questions. What did we do since yesterday or the last Scrum meeting? What we'll be doing before our next meeting, or what are the activities I'll be doing before we meet again for the next Scrum meeting, and are there any impediments or roadblocks which are coming in a way. Now remember one thing, daily stand-up meeting or a daily Scrum meeting should not end up with a solutioning exercise. So if there are team members who are reporting that, okay, I am blocked by something or there are some obstacles I am having, the Scrum Master will just have to note this down. He or she is not supposed to offer any solution at this point in time. And later on, the Scrum Master might schedule a meeting with the product owner to get a clarification on the block. But in a daily stand-up meeting, as I said, it's only the team members who respond to the three questions. What did you do since the last Scrum meeting? Do you have any obstacles? And what will you do before the next meeting? At the end of the sprint, the team demonstrates the piece of work which they have done to the product owner, and that is called as a sprint review meeting. So sprint review is also called as a demo, and once the demo is completed, the product is accepted, we actually have what is called as a potentially shippable product with us. At the end of this entire sprint cycle, we do a retrospective. So retrospective is a ceremony where the team actually critically examines what are the good things which happened in the project, what are the not so good things happened in this project, and any lessons learned out of this exercise. So all that is a part of your sprint retrospective. So I'll just take a pause here and see if there are any questions at the moment on this model or a framework. No, okay. No, I was just looking at the detailed question. Can the sprint backlog be changed during the sprint execution? The answer is no. A sprint backlog cannot be changed because it's a commitment made to the product owner. Is that clear, Ranganathan? I hope you are able to hear me. So as I said, sprint backlog is not something which we can change. Okay. So sprint backlog is not something which we can change in the middle of the sprint. A sprint backlog is a commitment which we are making to the product owner. So it cannot be changed. Is that clear, Ranganath? I hope you are able to hear me now. Okay. Product backlog, yes, you can keep on adding items to the product backlog or you can keep on updating the product backlog items. But sprint backlog is not something which can be changed as such. Okay. So moving ahead. Okay, moving ahead. Scrum values. Scrum talks about a set of values which are there, which are required for the team's processes and interaction. It talks about respect. It talks about your communication. It talks about simplicity, courage, feedback. So all those are our key Scrum values. Okay, so respect, communication, feedback, simplicity, and courage. So respect is respect for the team members. Communication is making sure that we are communicating with our team members at regular intervals. Then simplicity means keeping things simpler. Okay, then we have courage. Courage is the ability to challenge or to actually suggest some innovative practices. Feedback is giving feedback to the team members. So all these are my core Scrum values what are there. XP. XP actually came out of programming lab, and it's a practice which is done mostly at a coding level. So XP talks about certain key XP practices like test driven development, pair programming, simple design. That is what XP talks about. Okay, courage, as I said, courage is the ability to challenge. So if a team member is playing very conservatively, or if as a product owner he's trying to push lot of work onto the team should have a courage to challenge that. Agile talks about self-organizing team, right? So we cannot have a command or control culture in an agile project. So courage means that if someone is pushing too many items, we should have the courage to refuse or the courage to say no. Okay, XP, as I said, is a practice which grew more out of engineering or from the programmer's place, and it talks about certain key principles related to the whole team concept, to customer test, to the planning game, having small releases. It has innovative engineering practices like pair programming, test-driven development, refactoring, and simple design. So these are some of the innovative practices what we have. Then it talks about collective code ownership, coding standards, working at a sustainable pace. So in XP, we work at a sustainable pace. We do continuous integration in XP, which means that my code is continuously committed to the main line, and metaphor or simple design. And these are some of the core XP practices which are a part of XP programming framework, right? So XP, as I said, the author of XP, or the person who came up with XP, is Kent Beck. So Kent Beck is the person who invented XP as a part of his programmers, and there are certain extreme programming practices. Okay, so I think this is a very basic question. Extreme programming defines 4 basic activities that are performed during software development process. They include design, coding, testing, and what do you think could be the answer? Okay, let me show you the answer. The answer is listening. Okay, so listening is one of the basic activities in XP. Okay, coming to Kanban. Oh, sorry, just let me open the correct slide. Kanban. Now, Kanban, of course, will be going into details of each one of them. Uh, Kanban is basically a method in which we divide the project board into what is called as a Kanban board. And in a Kanban board, what essentially happens is we have certain sections. We have sections on the board, as you can see here, and it is nothing but a workflow driven approach. So every activity in my Kanban board moves through various stages. So for example, I have the analysis, then I have what is called the development area, then I have the acceptance area, and finally it moves into production. Now every section has got what is called as a WIP limit, or a work in progress limit. So in a work in progress limit, the WIP limit dictates how much work I can accommodate in a zone or in an area. For example, if you see here in the analysis, my WIP limit is set to 3, which means I can only take 3 tickets at a time. So if you see here, I have only taken 3 tickets at a time. If I try to push in more work, it is not possible because that work area is not having that much capacity. So Kanban is a pull-based system. Always remember that Kanban is a pull-based system and not a push-based system. So in a pull-based system, this zone will decide how much work it can pull and start work on it. Only when there is any empty task here can you pull it from the upstream process. And Kanban again is deriving its presence from manufacturing. So Kanban has been extensively used in manufacturing companies like Toyota. And in a Kanban, what happens is the team decides again how much work they can pull in at any point in time. So any questions on this? I know we are doing it at a very high level right now, but in subsequent classes we'll be going into much details. So any questions here at the moment on Kanban? Okay. So have you ever worked on Kanban by any chance? Have you worked on Kanban model by any chance? Okay, no. Okay, fine. As I said, it's basically used in manufacturing, but even in software, they come out with a Kanban mode. Okay, I forgot to ask you one more thing. Which is the tool you're using in Agile projects? What is the tool which is being used? Rally. Okay. Yeah, that is one of the better tools for Agile project. It's one of the best tools for Agile project, Rally. So Rally, if you observe, next time when you open Rally, you can see there's a Kanban board available in Rally. And you can actually construct a Kanban board there along with the WIP limits. Okay, moving ahead. Crystal. Now, Crystal methodology is a methodology which talks about incremental development, and it talks about grades. It essentially talks about the various grades in which a project can exist. Crystal is not asked in the exam. So just to let you know, Crystal is not something on which you get questions in the exam. It talks about what are the factors which really matter in the project and which are the important things which matter in the project, which influence the project outcome. So we plot what are the things which really matter and what are the things which really influence the project, and these factors are based on team size, system criticality, and project priorities. So based on that, you get a color coding. The red one indicates it's a very critical project. Clear one indicates that it's the least critical from these parameters. So it talks about certain parameters which impact the project from the criticality perspective, or from the things which really matter to the project and the things which really influence the project outcome. And based on that, we come up with a crystal color coding for the project, right? So that is what is a crystal framework. As I said, in exam, from an exam perspective, it's not important, and even in the industry per se, if you ask me, crystal is hardly used in a single digit percentage. So you'll find probably 6 to 7% of the total projects really using crystal. Moving ahead, FDD, feature driven development. That's another flavor of agile. Okay, I have a question here. Kanban is relatively used in the industry. It's very popular in the industry. Percentage of users would be around, as I said, Scrum would be around 70%, and the remaining 30% could be equally distributed or may not be equally distributed. XP could be around 10 to 12%, and Kanban and Lean could be around 18 to 20%. These could be the percentages, rough percentages, if I were to put it. Crystal and all would be in single digits. So Scrum typically 65 to 70%. Okay, it would be Scrum, and then your XP roughly could be 8 to 10% roughly. Kanban would be around 15% roughly. Again, I'm giving you these rough numbers, and rest all would be between the others category. Okay, now FDD is called as feature driven development, and what this essentially talks about is how do we develop a project by feature basis. So what we do in an FDD or a feature driven development, again not that much important from an exam perspective. We develop the overall model, which is an object oriented model. We build the features which are required in this model, which is the feature list, and we come up with a categorized feature list. Then we plan by feature, we design by feature, and we build the feature. So it's more like an waterfallish approach, but we are developing on a feature by feature incremental basis. So instead of capturing the entire requirement at one go, we actually develop it on a feature by feature basis. So this is something which is developed on a feature by feature basis to come up with a featured value or to come up with a client valued function. So that is what is a part of our feature driven development. Okay. Agile project management framework. This has been developed by Jim Highsmith, and he has also published a book called Agile Project Management, Creating Innovative Products. This talks about 5-phased approach for Agile project, which is called envision phase, wherein we gather the requirements; speculate phase, where we actually plan it, explore phase where we execute it, adapt and close. So these are the 5 phases: envision, speculate, explore, adapt and close. Now envision and close occur only once, whereas between speculate and adapt you do it in an iterative manner till the product is finally built. So you do multiple rounds of iteration between speculate, explore and adapt, and you keep on doing this till you reach the final product or till you come up with a final product. So that is what we do as a part of our Agile project management framework. Any questions here before I move ahead? Okay, fair enough. Just a minute. Yeah. So APM framework talks about envision phase, wherein I'd come up with a high level roadmap of the product. It includes the product vision and the scope. Speculate phase, where I come up with a plan, how I'm going to develop that vision. Explore phase is I will deliver tested features in a short time frame, and I will try to constantly reduce the risk and uncertainty of the project. Adapt phase, where I do a monitoring and tracking. So I review the delivered result and the current situation, the team performance and adapt as necessary. And finally, in the close phase, I conclude the project and pass along key learnings and celebrate. Now, these are also mapped to PMBOK 5th edition. Now, PMBOK is the body which is publishing the, PMBOK is a document which has been published by PMI, and it's a document which is required for clearing PMP certification program, and that has also got something called as 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling and closing. And these 5 phases are mapped to the 5 process groups of PMBOK. So that is also one correlation between the APM framework and the PMBOK framework. Okay, now vision, as I said, is expressed in the product vision during the envision phase of APM, and it has got clarity and a high level statement or an elevator statement. Clarity is that everybody must be clear what is being trying to be built up or what is the product we are designing. So all the key stakeholders should have or should be on the same page. They should be clear as to what is the product being developed. A high level pitch statement or an elevator statement would be that what is that this product is going to achieve, or what are the benefits which are going to be achieved by this product. And it should be a one liner or a max two liner statement which should be would not take more than 2 minutes to explain, because it's for a senior management or for at an executive leadership level. So it should not be something too elaborate or too much in detail, but it should be something which should be explained in a 2 minutes. Envision phase starts with the start of the project. It is also called as a kickoff meeting. And in an envision phase, we come up with a document which describes what is the customer's vision for the product, what is the scope of the work, who all are the key stakeholders in the project, how will the team deliver the product. So all this comes in as a part of the envision phase. So in the first phase, we come up with a vision, and in the envision phase, we come up with the overall vision, as I said. And then we have something called as a project data sheet. And a project data sheet consists of what is the name of the product, what are the unique selling points, the detailed description, the project vision statement, and the project scope. So if you ask me, APM is closer to a traditional project management where we stress a lot of things on the documentation part of the project. Again, from an exam perspective, APM, the only thing, of course, they won't go into much detail. The only thing they will ask you is this model with this envision phase, speculate phase, explore phase, adapt phase, and a close phase, and what happens in each of these phases. So as I said, Scrum is more important, and followed by XP and Lean Kanban. Some other details which are there in project vision and scope could include the name of the project manager or the leader, name of the product owner, who's the sponsor for this project, what is a high level statement for the project or a project objective statement, what are the key business objectives we are trying to achieve by doing this, trade-off matrix features. Now this section talks about what are the features which we are planning to develop, and in case we need to put in some additional features, which are the features which will go off the product. So typically what happens is our features are prioritized, and the low level features are the one which fall off the radar. So in case a new feature comes in which is of a higher priority, the low level features are the ones which go off the radar. Who all are the key customers and clients? What is the daily cost? What are the capabilities we are trying to develop? What are the quality objectives? Any risks associated, we document them. Any constraints? What is the delay cost if they, I mean, what is the architectural cost or a cost of delay? And exploration factor. So this is what my project data sheet consists of in an APM project management framework. Pretty much the same piece of information which goes into a traditional project management, which we capture as a part of traditional project management. In the speculate phase, we translate the product vision or the high level vision into backlog requirements, and the format which we use is called as user stories. So user story is the overall framework or the approach in order to meet the requirements, and we'll be talking about user stories which we as we move ahead. And we come up, or we basically do a feature level planning, and we break down the feature into user stories, and we do planning at three main levels. A release level planning. A release consists of multiple iterations. Remember this, one release will have multiple iterations or sprint. In some organizations, between release and iteration, they also have what is called as a wave. So we do a release planning, we do a wave planning, and we do an iteration planning. So these are the three levels of planning which we do as a part of speculate phase in the project. Okay. In the explore phase, we start working on the project and we start delivering user stories. So once my plan is ready, in the iteration, I start doing the work. And what I do is, once my work is completed, I give a demo of that work to my product owner. So the team starts delivering the working, tested and accepted features in form of user stories. And whatever are the plans which I have developed, they are executed, and we deliver the project, or we actually execute and we construct the project deliverables, which are then shown to the customer or to the product owner. In the adapt and close phase, the team constantly evaluates the work being done and they try to improve the work, right? So they actually deliver the work and they ratify whether the work which is delivered from the customer's perspective, they inspect the quality of the work, and they also measure the team performance and the project status. So that is what happens in the adapt phase. In the close phase, we actually initiate the closure of the project. So we capture key lessons learned and we celebrate the success of the project. So that is what essentially happens in the adapt and the close phase of the APM model. Okay, I have a question here. Okay, other than the fixed bid, there's also sometimes called as a fixed scope model. Fixed bid, fixed scope model. But predominantly agile, ideally I should not recommend a fixed cost model. it's typically your timelines are fixed. Within that timeline, whatever you can do best is what you should be going for. You tell the customer that, okay, we'll work for 1 year. Within 1 year, whatever you can add or whatever you can subtract from the scope, that is what best works from the agile team's perspective. Fixed time, basically. Fixed time or a fixed duration model. DSDM stands for Dynamic System Development Method, and it focuses on the business solution rather than just the team activity. Again, not that much popular model, and it again talks about close collaboration between various stakeholders. And in DSDM, the iron triangle is also reversed. In a traditional model, scope is something which is fixed and time and resources are variable. If you know, now that we have done this, in a DSDM model, my time and resources are fixed and my functionality is variable. So the scope is varying in DSDM. And one of the key things which happens in DSDM is there's a heavy use of prototyping. So we use a lot of prototyping as a part of DSDM model. Okay, so time and resources are fixed. Functionality is something which is kept as variable. Okay, so DSDM, again, I'm not going into much details of it because from an exam perspective, it's not that important. But what we essentially do is we do a feasibility study and business study. And based on the feasibility study and business study, we agree, we identify a functional prototype, we agree a plan, we create a functional prototype and we review it. Once it is reviewed and once it is approved, it goes into design. So what is the first step? The first step in DSDM is somehow my pen is not working. Just give me a minute. Okay, just give me a minute. So the first step in DSDM is so my pen I think is not working here. Yeah, now it's working, I think. Yeah. So my first step in DSDM is to do a feasibility study and come up with a feasibility study and a business study. Then I identify a prototype, agree on a plan, create functional prototype and review functional prototype. Once this is done, I identify design prototype, agree on a plan and create design prototype and review design prototype. And then I implement this in the production. So I review the business aspect, I implement it, I review the business aspect, I do user approval guideline and I train users. So this is what is my DSDM methodology or dynamic system methodology. So the full form of that is dynamic system distributed model. That's the full form of dynamic system development model. That's the full form of DSDM. Okay, moving ahead. So with this, we have completed this class, and in the next class, it will be interesting for you because you had a lot of questions on agile contract. We'll be actually talking about what are the contracts in an agile project in the next class. How do we implement multiple levels of planning? What is a Kanban board and WIP limit? And what is a cumulative flow diagram? So we'll be having our class tomorrow at the same time. Yeah, so I think we can close the class today. What I suggest is, if you get time, please attempt the quiz question. So there's a quiz question available. If you get time, please attempt the quiz question in the session. So fine, let's meet tomorrow then. Thanks a lot for attending and patiently hearing to me, and we'll meet tomorrow again. Thanks a lot.